Yes, but you're here for stories, so roll the tape. Hi, I'm Kyle, and I'm building a single-seat off-road electric buggy. I've got the skeleton of a car, but it's missing a few pieces. One of those pieces is the front hubs, so I'm gonna make some. The job of the hub is to mount the wheel while spinning around the spindle. I also want mine to mount the brake rotors. The existing spindle will dictate the length of the hub and the bearings that can fit in it. This spindle can fit 2 bearings on the car side and 1 on the wheel side.
Geez, Kyle. That looks like a big project. Why don't you just buy a pair of whatchamacallits?
Hubs! And yeah, that'd be nice, but the spec and origin of these spindles is long lost to time. Anyway, excessively complicating a design and overbuilding a part is more fun than shopping. Learning from past experiences, see the bearing carrier vid for more details. I started with a tube instead of a solid piece of metal. Now, first things first, I'm the realist. And I need to cut this tube to the right length.
The tube is very close to the size of the final part, which means I have to carefully mount it in the lathe, and that led to a little problem.
I think we got ourselves a good old-fashioned side project. So it looks like my chuck adapter is no longer concentric. Oh, what's concentric? Well, concentricity is the measurement of how circular something is. So if you take a circle and you measure its edge as you spin it, the difference between the high measurement and the low measurement is how concentric that circle is. Now my chuck adapter is about 3/1000ths of an inch out of concentricity. And that's way out for a chuck adapter. And that error is getting propagated to the rest of the system. So the chuck is about 4 to 8 thousandths out, and the part is about 15 to 30 thousandths out. I should be able to get that part within a couple of thousandths, so I'm going to have to do something to fix this entire system. So to fix this, I'm going to remachine my lathe adapter. So I'm going to cut off the lip that's there and cut down and make a new lip. And hopefully there's still enough material to hold the chuck.
Different metals tend to make different chips. For instance, the cast iron or cast steel here makes this crumbly swarf. Of course, any errors on the adapter will propagate to bigger errors on the chuck, so I'm measuring these cuts like my chuck depends on it. Because it does. And finally, some healthy chamfers to make it look professional.
Alright, my new mounting plate is hot off the lathe, and already there is a problem. These are the original bolts that came with the mounting plate, and now they are too long. They're bottoming out in the chuck. No worries. A quick trip to the hardware store, and I've got some shorter ones. Alright, let's put that back on the lathe and test it for squareness. We're about 1 thou out now. That's much better.
After a bit of tapping in, the part has 5 thou of runout, a significant improvement over the 15 from earlier. Now crucially, the part I'm making only has 14 thou of wiggle room, so the 5 thou of runout is going to be tight, but it should work.
One side project later, and I've got a tuned up chuck, which means I can start turning. Now this is going to be an interesting part to machine because I'd like to try to do it in one setup. Now the reason I want to do this in one setup is because each time you change the orientation of the part in the lathe, you lose accuracy, unless you're dealing with a 4-jaw chuck, and I don't have one of those. Yet. So I want to do this all in one setup. Now this is going to be difficult because there's that lip inside the part. So I'm going to have to bore and then lift off, go deeper, and then keep boring. Now this is called blind boring, and it means that I'm going to have to be very careful and creative with my dials.
I started by facing the tube, and any claims to the contrary are heresy.
Touch pass. Now, hello, you. Now, previously, I would have called you a part of shame, but today, I'm going to pretend I bored you too big on purpose. Yeah, I needed a tube with a big bore to help press bearings out anyway. All right, starting the interior blind bore. Similar to the bearing carriers I made in a previous video, I want the hubs to be a press fit for the bearings. So great care was taken machining the internal diameter to match the bearing diameter exactly. Unlike the bearing carriers I made in a previous video, I will mess up the tolerance in the opposite way. Guess I'm just creative like that.
The exterior of the hubs needs turning to fit the laser-cut lug star and rotor mounts. Speaking of which, I had to reorder the lug stars because my first batch had way too small lug holes.
I really need to get an intern to blame these kinds of mistakes on.
At least the first version made for a nice plant hook. Back on the lathe, and we're using the parting blade to cut the starting and ending grooves for the chuck side turning. A few passes later and the part's ready for parting.
I guess that's it.
I don't like parting. A bit of cleaning and we can mock the part up. And ooh, that is satisfying. And oh, I've missed a few things. Now, convenient as the part shortening hammer is, this one seems to have widened my holes.
No, that's not right.
The holes aren't the right size. A bit of a theme with this build, actually.
Hello, children. So today, we have a hub star. Now the job of the hub star is to hold the lug bolts. Now this hub star won't hold the lug bolts and won't keep them still unless we tap these holes in the hub star. So that's what we're going to do.
Like a lot of machining, I find tapping, that is cutting threads in a hole, to be rather meditative. Once you get in the groove, it's just the repetitive motions of twist a bit and clear the chips. Twist a bit and clear the chips. A dash of cutting fluid. Twist a bit and clear the chips. Of course, if you break the tap, all the piece goes right out the window, but thankfully, today, just tranquility.
Now, I don't want to come across as a better designer than I actually am. I'm meandering my way through this build as I do with most. And at this point, the redesigns are starting to pile up. Now, you've already seen how I needed to shorten the brake caliper mounts, but what you didn't see is how I need to make inserts because the mounting holes are too big on version 2. Now, I also need to make standoffs to align the brake caliper with the rotor because the rotor is too far away from the uprights on the new hub. Now, I'm willing to believe that these calipers always needed standoffs because my rotor is mounted at the very end of the hub, so maybe someone else flubbed this before I even had the chance. Another issue is the lug stars aren't fitting into the wheels because Vlad the tap-wielding vampire tapped them slightly crooked. I'll probably re-tap them using the second lug star as a guide to help keep the tool straight. Finally, I originally designed the rotors to bolt on, but it's too cramped next to the hub wall for nuts. So I'm tapping the rotor mounts, and I'm doubling the number of bolts from 4 to 8, because in the event that this thing actually goes, I want to make sure that it actually stops. Making mistakes is a normal part of learning, and boy, am I learning a lot during this build.
With the tubes turned, the stars tapped, and the major problems addressed, it's time to weld the lug star and brake rotor mount on.
That's the prettiest one I've made. Now, I don't get to choose because I already bought my wheels. But do you prefer an even or odd number of spokes on your hubs? All right, I'm about to weld the rotor mount to the tube. I've got the rotor in there to keep my spacing just right. This welding job might be a bit interesting because I got a nice thick tube and kind of a thinner rotor mount. The issue that we might run into is that the thick tube is not going to melt as easily as the rotor mount. So I have to pump a lot of heat into that tube without pumping too much heat into the rotor mount and melting it. So I got to balance my heat just right, but fingers crossed, we'll make this work. Whoop, and there it is.
I also made some hubcaps to keep the dust out of my bearings. Laser cut flange, welded to a tube section, and capped with a disc. Turned out real nice. Look at my son. So beefy, so strong.
Oh, I don't like that sound.
Next, I used a friend's hydraulic press to press the bearings in. One rattle can dance later, and I've added 7 horsepower and a bit of rust resistance. Usually studs are press fit in, but I'm taking a risk in using Loctite to secure these. I don't have a particularly strong impact driver, so it'll probably be fine. And they're done. Wait, that should spin. Why isn't it spinning?
Son of a bitch!
I don't have any motivation. I don't know what's wrong. I mean, I know what's wrong. The thing won't spin. I don't know why.
We caught up with Kyle later, this time in a much better mood.
We are so back at business, boys. I was chatting about the hubs with Cole, and he headshotted the issue. The hubs are too tight. They're squishing the bearings, which is why they aren't spinning smoothly.
So, I have to remove the bearings from the hubs, which turns out to be not trivial. I have a wacky idea for a completely over-engineered solution, which would be a cool build, and no, Kyle. Use the tools you have now first.
Oh, it's moving! It's coming out. Very, very slowly but surely, it's coming out. It's crowning! It's crowning! The baby's crowning! Oh no. Oh, okay. No, that's intended. Oh, it's working. Oh my god, it's working. Holy shit. Holy buggeration. Oh, dearie me. Cole was right. The hubs are too tight. On the car side on that one, and on the wheel side on that one. The bearing on that side is so bad that it's got a permanent bump in it. And it has a taper, which is to say, it's slightly cone-shaped now. New rule. If I can't press the bearings in with this dinky arbor press, then it's too tight. Anyway, I gotta remount these on the lathe. Now, fortunately for me, between the dark times of no motivation and over-engineering bearing carriers, I acquired a 4-jaw chuck. Now, besides having 25% extra jaws, a 4-jaw chuck allows me to remount a part in the lathe while maintaining concentricity. And how does this magic work? Well, the jaws of a 4-jaw chuck are independently adjustable, as opposed to those of a 3-jaw whose jaws all clamp down at the same time. With a 4-jaw chuck, you can dial in the part, measuring the wobble and making adjustments until it's steady. As you can imagine, this does take a lot of time. I really need to stop doing projects with tight bore tolerances. Oh, to answer my question from earlier, I like hubs with spoke counts divisible by 4, as it turns out.
Since I don't trust my measurements, I tested the fit by trying to press in the bearing. It's the most accurate way of testing, even if I have to remount the part a couple of times. I need the 4-jaw mounting practice anyway. Mounting the second hub presented a problem. The studs interfere with the chuck body. Or is it the chuck body interfering with the studs? In a happy little Bob Ross accident, it turns out my hubcaps are over-designed enough to securely mount them on the lathe, which I'm having to do a lot. So actually, they're perfectly designed. I was lazy, and I didn't put a gauge to measure the plunge when I widened the double side bearing. I cut it too deep, man. I felt a little woozy, and that's why the bearings push too far in. Can you tell I just wanted to get it done?
It does the thing! It does the thing! I made a hub!
These bad boys can hold so many rippums. But that does mean they're done. And they're ready to mount on the car. It's starting to look like a real car now.
So, yes, I can make hubs. Maybe not very well on the first try, but with a few revisions, I think they'll work. Thanks for watching.